Welcome to the Paisans podcast. We're your hosts, the brothers from other mothers, Dante, Dave, and Sark. Join us as we talk about current events, our wives, kids, or whatever else life is throwing at us this week. You're with the Paisans, you're with family. We had an entire podcast where we talked about our memories from high school and just like all the experiences that we shared as a whole group of friends and everything. And oh my gosh, we were recalling a couple of classic stories. One of the stories we were telling Dave was about jumping the car over the railroad tracks. Do you remember this?
I do. And we lost the video, and it's one of those lost artifacts, Dave. We actually recorded it. And it wasn't a car. It was not a car, dude. It was a beast.
It was more than a car.
It was so much more. It was so much more.
It was like the Wolverine of automobiles where it couldn't be killed.
We also talked about for graduation how we decorated the truck with like all the bushes and branches and everything else. And then some bush and then realized, like, come to find out the fact that it was somebody's like prized bush or some like ridiculous. This was like, Do you like remember any of these things? Do you ever like talk to your daughter about this stuff or like talk to friends and retell these stories?
I don't tell my daughter yet. I will. I remember it vividly. In fact, it was, you guys don't know this. It was the inspiration for the first screenplay I ever wrote. I wrote a whole movie based on but in the movie we killed somebody, and it was like you cover up the death with the murder of law. You're off-roading, and there was one vivid off-roading experience that I remember down to the tape cassette we played in the deck. We played Great Balls of Fire once, and we decided we were at Dave. I lived in this development in Nailsboro or Belmead called the Paisans, and there's about 200 houses there now. But back in the day, it was a lot of red mud. Houses weren't fully developed, and I don't remember how it started. That we started wreaking havoc is what Mike used to call it. But we just would off-road on people's properties.
You guys want to just go to Nick's and wreak havoc for 2 hours?
Wreak some havoc. Yeah. Yeah. And I was a lot cooler than I think I really was about it. But yeah, I remember a lot of it. I remember jumping the car. I remember one night vividly where we broke down 3 times. Do you remember that night where I broke down 3 times?
Yeah. I'll never forget that. Oh yeah.
Yes.
And we had to call Stan to come and like haul the car.
And then we got pulled over while Stan was hauling the car.
I don't even remember that.
All right. So we were off. It was like a Friday night and whatever, Saturday night. And we were off-roading at nighttime in the middle of this field of farmland with this very tall grass. And the grass was so tall, it blocked the windshield. So we were literally, driving blind. And I would act like it was so cool for whatever reason, because it made Mike laugh harder the more I put your lives in danger. And we were driving around, and all you could see was headlights against this grass, like. And I remember it was either Dante or Mike, or maybe even Grossman, who said, I think it was probably Dante or Mike, said, maybe we should stop. And right at that moment was when we hit the tree.
Yes, I remember that.
Do you remember that?
It was like jutting right out. It like went right into that.
Yeah, it was like it went like this into the grill of the car, and the car went.
Wow.
The car went dead, and the battery went dead. The lights went dead. The car went dead, and we're in the middle of some guy's farmland at night, and we're like, "Oh, what do we do now?" So we started the car, and luckily it started up again. And of course, we decided, well, let's keep doing this. Let's not go home. Let's just keep driving again.
It's like, why would we stop now?
Why
that's a pass to keep going.
So we drove around, and then we went into this other area of field. And at the middle of the night, it's a bit empty field, driving around, and there are these big white pipes sticking out of the ground. I don't know what they are. turned out they were natural gas pipelines, and we're weaving around in between
Yes,
them,
they were.
not knowing that I could cause an explosion or something. And then the car dies again. And then this time it doesn't start.
That was divine intervention.
Ignorance was definitely bliss. Maybe it would have been better if it had taken us out. I would have saved more property. But then we walked to the Hillsborough Diner because, we don't have cell phones then at all. So we walked to a payphone,
Right.
the Hillsborough Diner, and called Stan. He was the only one. Stan was this guy we knew who had a truck or something. And he came out to the middle of the field and he chained the back of my Jeep to his car, and he towed us out car to car. And as we're driving along the highway, we get pulled over by the cops. Again, well, not again. That night we got pulled over. And luckily, because Stan was an EMT, the cop knew him and we got off. But the funny thing is, I don't think you guys know this, was he pulled me in, put me in the driveway of our house. And I walk in, and my mom and dad, bless their souls, they either knew and didn't say anything, or they didn't really know anything. The next morning they come out, and my dad says, it was either Nick or my mom or dad, why is there all this clumped up dirt in the driveway underneath the car? So.
And why is there a hole in the front of the car?
Why is there I said, I hit a deer or something. I don't know. 'Cause you do. But, and that whole night inspired the movie that I wrote.
Wow. You remember a lot more detail than I remember. I didn't remember walking to the diner and like calling Stan and pretty much begging him to come and pull us out because we were screwed.
I'm surprised you remember it in that much detail, Nick. I give you a lot of credit. I was going to bring up the gas lines. I didn't know if you remembered that, but clearly you were inspired by that.
Yeah.
Did anybody pick up those screenplays?
It got me a lot of attention. Well, I mean, there's been, I've had one manager, maybe two agents here and there who was interested in it. It was always, it was called Killing Familiar. I turned it into a pilot after a while to see if I could make it something else. I actually tried to make it once, and I tried to get some casting involved. And so I knew a couple people who tried to get some people attached so I could make it for an independent movie, but that never worked. But yeah, it was something that 20 years later, people still sort of tell me about. So that was always fun. And because it came, I think, from a place of true. But, we were trying to go with the actors, and there was a girl named Toby who's sort of the femme fatale at the time. And I don't know who we were going to go with for that, but, we just, it was just one of those things where that's the closest I ever got with anything. It was fun. It was fun. We went to Rhinebeck, New York, where my mom was living at the time, and scouted locations there. And there was a cool junkyard, and I was going to, the whole race was going to be in the middle of the junkyard, and they were going to be smashing. It was great.
I like that. Love it.
So, Nick, if I could take a step back in the movie of my life, and I can't speak for Mike. After high school, we went to college, and like several of us ended up going to Rutgers together. And you were outside of, was it Winston-Salem, or was it, where were you in North Carolina? Remind me.
It was Winston-Salem. It was a school called it's been renamed, but it's now the University of the North Carolina School of the Arts, or School of Filmmaking. Yeah. Winston-Salem.
Yes. And you really followed your dream. Like, I always respected the fact that you were like, you had a vision. You were like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to be. And you were like on the way. Whereas like my path was very, very different and was very dependent on other things and so on and so forth. But I always respected the fact that you had this idea of like, you had a dream and you like followed it fearlessly.
Yeah. Does this feel like another life to you? I mean, you've been there a long time.
It's a good question, but truthfully, I still say when people ask you where you're from, you say New Jersey. That doesn't really
Of course you do.
leave, that's just your foundational background. What are you? I'm an Italian from New Jersey. That says everything. You don't have to go into detail much more than that. But I'm a Californian. I don't know if I could ever live in New Jersey again. You guys know that Dante came out here for a trip. and
Yeah,
he and I got to reconnect, and that was a fun time. And he actually got to meet my daughter for a little bit, so she's aware she's aware of who you are, Dante. Not to be so dramatic. She knows, But I think that's the cool thing about having lived in California for so long, is that Sophia doesn't know anything but California. Think about it. She's not from New Jersey. She was legit born in Hollywood, California. That's the town she was born in. That's on her birth certificate. Fool. I'm sorry. That's fool. I love that. I love that about her.
I noticed that the Bronco was making a comeback, and I can't help but every single time I see one, think of you.
What's pretty crazy about that is that when most people hear about think of a Bronco, they think of OJ. But here's Sark seeing a Bronco, and he's thinking
it's
of Nick.
close.
Oh.
It's close.
I'm going to have to correct you again, Mike. You didn't call it the Bronco. You called it the Bronto.
No, it was the
after
Bronto.
Brontosaurus. The Brontosaurus, because it was such the dinosaur.
Right. That's right.
I mean, and it was, but
those things,
Bronto.
They really have come back. I've got, so that's on my wish list. I want to get one of those cars because you can still get that car in a stick. I know I've said this to like everybody already, but you could still get that car in a manual transmission. So I got to get one of those. It's only a matter of time.
Nick, did you sell the Bronto before you went out to California, or before you went to, what did you do with it?
It caught on fire. Yeah, I was driving it to the Bridgewater Commons one day where I was working. By that time, there was a hole in the bottom of the driver's seat floor from just, I don't know, you could see the ground underneath it. I don't know why. And at one point, this black smoke started. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why there was all.
It just showed up one day.
Yeah, you could see the ground underneath it, and this black smoke started smoking, and it died in the Bridgewater Commons parking lot. It never came back. You guys remember coming down to the Jersey Shore, like prom weekend, or something, with all of our prom dates?
Oh yeah,
and you guys stayed at the shore house, and we were skidooing or ski bobbing.
We stayed at your grandmother's place, right?
That's right. Yeah. And we went. My dad took us out on the boat and was dragging us behind the boat. And, do you remember that? And then but the water is like splat. You're like hanging out with your life like this. The water's like that, and then you just.
That was so much fun, though.
It was.
We had so much fun. I mean, don't know if your dad was such a piece of work. He was such a piece of work. He was just like right away breaking our balls. The second we got there, just like making jokes, breaking balls constantly with the comments. But then he was like really actually was fun. It's like he sort of had this sort of gruff kind of demeanor about him, almost like he didn't have time for us, but he seemed to lean in and enjoy spending time with us. I mean, maybe I'm remembering it through rose-colored glasses, but my memory was like he sort of put on like he was, but then he also wanted to hang out with us a little bit. I don't know.
Nick,
am I making that up?
Did he actually got for that he gets PTO or time off from the mafia? Or
No, I remember Mike.
Or was he working when we were there? He was on the job.
See, and that's the stuff you would tell him in my driveway. I don't know if you would say that to him. Like, we would walk around with his video camera and filming everything, and Dad was checking the back of the car, and Mike would turn the camera like this. Yeah, that's where the bodies are buried. Like that. And that's right. And he'd do it with this look. Like, Mike Sark, you were one of the funniest people I had ever met in high school. For whatever reason, I always thought you were fearless. And Dante was someone I could talk to. You were fearless in ways that, everyone has that friend that is the funniest damn friend in the group. And to me,
thank you, man.
that was Mike. Dante was a friend in a different way, and I think we're still like this. We enjoy having real, not that Mike, we didn't have real conversations, but you were just the funniest motherfucker on the planet. And Dante and I would just have different kinds of discussions. I don't know why. I used to ask it. He was almost like somebody I looked up to in the high school, for whatever reason, and then I got a trench coat. I got a black trench coat because he got a black trench coat,
Oh my gosh. I'm flattered.
I could see that. That's why I predicted you were the one that yelled stop in the vehicle, because I know I wasn't yelling stop. And Nick was just taking orders, so you were yelling stop.
He was taking orders. It's funny, Nick, that you're reinforcing like the same things. Like when I talk to my kids about this, and I sort of talk about us, each of us. Well, yeah, like when my kids ask me stories about my youth, and I tell them stories, like, and I tell my kids some of the stories, like the different things that we did about driving off road or whatever. One of their favorite stories is when you pulled the hair wash thing in physics class, and the part that nobody understands, the beauty of that story that nobody understands, is that you weren't in our physics class. Was that you showed up in our physics class specifically to do it? And here's what's funny, and you know this is true. You knew that it was going to make Mike laugh hysterically, and that was all the reason you needed to do it. That's exactly what it was. And when Mike saw you show up, he saw you just standing in the doorway waiting. And he started laughing. And it was like already we were all breaking up. None of us could hold it in. Tell me that's not the truth.
No. Okay, so here's the story, and it's absolutely true. I don't know how the idea came up, but as for the viewing audience or whatever, there's in every chemistry or science room, there's an emergency shower in case, I don't know, someone's on fire or they get a Bunsen burner in their eyeballs. I don't know. And somehow we got the idea, like, what if I took a shower in physics class? And I just went up and pulled this. And we came up, I don't know how the idea came up, but we're like, we're going to do it in physics class. Mike's like, I'm not in physics class, but I'm going to be there.
Miss Burke, I got permission to skip history just to listen to you teach this subject.
Mike, you were the one who wasn't in our class?
Yeah, Mike was not in the class. He just showed up and said, Miss Burke, I'm here to sit in because I need to learn the lesson again. I need a little bit more reinforcement or something. And, you know,
that's right. I can't believe you remember this.
Miss Burko had to have known what was about to happen. I mean,
she knew something was afoot.
What happened was we waited the entire class, and everybody starts to. I don't know why. I don't think of myself as a class clown, but for whatever reason, I was around you guys. Near the end of the class, it's less 3-4 minutes before class. I still haven't done it, and I walk up to the shower, and I'm looking at it like, what's going on here? And like that. And everyone's starting to giggle. And Mrs. Burko goes, Nick, don't. And then I go, what, this? And I pull it. And then the water starts just gushing down on me. Now, you got to also picture at the time I had hair, you know, so I had a Steven Seagal mullet hair or whatever it was at the time. And I'm wearing like, you know, the Eddie Vedder Pearl Jam grunge outfit or whatever. And I'm just, whatever it was at the time, I'm getting soaked. But what none of us realize is when you pull the shower, you can't turn it off. So I start to go pull it like I'm going to shut off the water stream, but that's not how it works. It has to empty the whole reservoir. So I don't know what else to do, but I start, you know, doing this and then, you know, and then the whole place gets flooded. I'm soaked, and Miss Burke goes, Nick, and I go, I know. And I just walk out and start going to the office.
Do you remember what you said to her? You were like, what? I didn't take a shower this morning.
My God, I was such an idiot.
You know, the best part that we would do was the feigned ignorance, was the whole like what? What are you talking about? That was the funniest part. With a totally straight face, like what? Like, yeah. Well, she knew something was up because Nick starts like circling like a shark, like the head wash thing, and she's like, Nick, she can see it, but she can't stop it. And this is a woman who came back that year. The year before, she had been out having. Remember, she had just returned
like
from cancer,
near-death experience. She was like 89.
That's right, and I was horrible to her. That's right. I forgot she had cancer, and I showered in her physics class. Yeah,
yeah. She came in a sling several times. Yeah.
Oh my God! But she beat it. She beat it, guys. Let's give her credit. She beat it. You know, I mean, she wasn't. You know, she. You know, let's give Miss Burko some credit. She beat it before I did that horrible thing. But what you guys don't remember, and Dave, this is what they don't get. You know, what they don't get is that there was always an aftermath that they never saw that I had to deal with. So after physics class, I'm walking to the principal's office and I'm completely soaked and drenched, and people are looking at me as I'm walking, like, what is going on with this guy? And then I had to go back to the room afterward. I had to change into my gym clothes, which nobody ever washed their gym clothes in high school. So they were not fresh. And I had to go back to the physics room and mop up all the water. And I had to
go back and clean the room? I didn't know that.
I had to mop up all the water in the room.
We talk about things that we wish. Like, I'm not proud of it. I'm not proud of it. Because we would push you, and they'd be like, Nick, that sucks for you.
Oh, Nick, you had to clean up the whole room? Shit, man. We were hanging out at Bagel Bop and fucking...
I didn't have to go in with a bottle of Windex and clean the chalkboard or anything, but I had to mop up the whole room. It took some time. That was like 300 gallons of water.
Yes, I know. I remember we were all standing in like 2 inches of water.
So you had to go down to the office, obviously, and it was the vice principal. Right? Remember the vice principal? Boy, you went down there, and maybe they sent you back to clean the room, but at some point you had to go back in, and you had to meet with him, and we got called in because they knew we were all in on it. Miss Burke obviously knew, right? And basically you confessing that we put you up to it. So he kind of gives us the speech, right? Like, you know, you should know better. And then he says to you, and a lesson for you, Nick, like, if your friends dared you to jump off of a bridge, would you do it? You know, and you go, probably.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did that.
Like that,
Oh my gosh. That was just...
Let me take 1 second, and I got to let my out real quick.
I'm not proud of this. Like, I'm not telling any of these stories like as if I'm proud of what I mean, it's like confession time because we egged on so badly. And then we were like, oh, gee, that sucks. Like, that was terrible. Oh my God.
I mean, the story with the shower is hilarious. And obviously the fact that the teacher was like 90 years old, it's so hilarious.
I almost feel like, you know, they must have instituted certain policies after we graduated as a result of the things that we did with Nick.
I'm thinking about the shower thing, and he's like, yeah, to go back and mop it. I'm thinking if someone did that now, they'd be like expelled, you know?
Yes. Yes.
Mopping sucks, but it wasn't the worst penalty that could possibly happen.
We never thought about that. I mean, we would go in because we'd get called in for a lot of those things. But yeah, man, I never at the time crossed my mind that Nick got called back in to clean it up.
First of all, the whole Wreaking Havoc thing, that is a throwback. Like, that's a memory of like how we used to think about it. And that's kind of what it was all about. Like, it was just like, let's be crazy. Like, oh, let's ask Nick to do something insane and see if he does it. Let's pick another time. Let's reconnect again. We can tell some more stories, maybe get into some other things. Like,
we should do a part 2 for certain.